Greetings, Lore Lords, and welcome back to our series, Who is Horus? In Part 2, we witnessed the unspeakable treachery of Istvan III and the devastating ambush at the drop site massacre on Istvan V. Now, with the Imperium reeling from these initial blows, Horus, the Warmaster, sets his grand strategy in motion, consolidating his power and preparing for the long and bloody war to come. Today, we delve into Horus's calculated moves, his manipulation of his brothers, and the desperate, ultimately failed, attempts to strike him down. This is Part 3 of Who is Horus? Part 1. The Traitor Primarch's Conclave. Fresh from the brutal victory at the drop site massacre, Horus understood the need to solidify his command and coordinate the efforts of the newly formed traitor legions. To this end, he convened a crucial conclave of the Primarchs aboard his flagship, the formidable Vengeful Spirit. 5 Primarchs answered his call in person. There was Fulgrim of the Emperor's Children, his once noble legion already well down the path of hedonistic excess. Angron of the World Eaters, forever racked by the butcher's nails, his fury a weapon easily turned. Mortarion of the Death Guard, his pragmatism twisted into a morbid acceptance of decay. Lorgar of the Word Bearers, the architect of the Emperor's godhood, and now a devoted servant of the dark gods. And of course, Horus himself, the Warmaster, his charisma now a tool for manipulation and destruction. 3 other Primarchs joined the council via hololithic projection, their images flickering across the bridge through the turbulent currents of the warp. Perturabo of the Iron Warriors, his strategic genius now focused on tearing down the works of his former master. The enigmatic Night Haunter of the Night Lords, his reign of terror already spreading fear across the eastern fringe. And finally, Magnus the Red of the Thousand Suns. Only recently fallen to the traitor cause after the tragic scouring of Prospero, Magnus and the shattered remnants of his legion had been transported into the Eye of Terror by the fickle will of Tzeentch, finding a new, bitter home on the planet of the sorcerers. The Thousand Suns, feeling betrayed by the Emperor's condemnation of their psychic arts, now willingly embraced their new allegiance, becoming the 8th Traitor Legion. Around this war council, the traitor Primarchs laid out their plans for the next phase of the war against the Emperor. Each legion received its specific directives, setting them on diverging paths towards a unified goal, the fall of Terra. Part 2. Securing the supply lines and flanks. With the council concluded, the traitor legions dispersed to enact their assigned roles. The fleets of Angron, Fulgrim, Mortarion, Lorgar, and Horus himself set course for Mars. Crucially, word had reached Horus from the Tech Priest Regulus, the Mechanicus's liaison with the 63rd Expeditionary Fleet, confirming the planet's fall during the brutal schism of Mars. The vital manufacturing facilities of Mondus Gamma and Mondus Aculum were now under traitor control, meaning the forges of Mars were free to arm and supply the Warmaster's burgeoning armies. Horus recognized the need to secure his flanks and prevent loyalist forces from regrouping. The eager warriors of the Alpha Legion, masters of infiltration and deception, were entrusted with a vital, multifaceted mission. Following Horus's earlier manipulation of Leman Russ and the Space Wolves into attacking Prospero, the Warmaster knew the Space Wolves were operating in that region. In the nearby Kondak system, Jagatai Khan and the White Scars were sure to have received news of the rebellion and would likely attempt to link up with their fellow loyalists. Horus could not allow this potentially devastating alliance to form. Alpharius and his Alpha Legion were tasked with seeking out and engaging both the Space Wolves and the White Scars, preventing them from joining forces and presenting a unified loyalist threat. The Night Haunter and his Night Lords had already departed, their sinister fleet bound for the remote world of Tsagualsa in the eastern fringe, a world shrouded by a massive asteroid belt. From this shadowy base, the Night Lords would unleash a terrifying campaign of genocide against the Imperial strongholds of Heraldar and, more importantly, Thramas. The Thramas system held particular strategic value as it contained several Mechanicus Forge worlds whose loyalty still lay with the Emperor. Furthermore, this brutal campaign would serve to tie up the formidable Dark Angels Legion under Lion L. Johnson, preventing the Lion's powerful forces from being brought to bear against Horus's main advance on Terra. Finally, the ships of the Iron Warriors prepared for a journey to the Fall system. Intelligence indicated a large fleet of Imperial Fists vessels were regrouping there after their failed attempt to reach Istvan V and aid the initial Loyalist forces. Although Rogel Dawn's warriors had not participated in the drop site massacre, Horus couldn't allow such a potent Loyalist force to remain unmolested. The long-standing animosity between the bitter Perturabo and the proud Dawn was well known, and it was with grim satisfaction that the Iron Warriors set off to engage their old rivals. With his supply lines secured at Mars and potential Loyalist reinforcements engaged on multiple fronts, the traitors were poised to unleash 7 Terran years of devastating civil war upon the Imperium, all in the name of Horus and the Dark Gods. Part 3. The Shadow of the Knife, the assassination attempt on Horus. As Horus consolidated his military strategy, a desperate attempt to end the rebellion before it truly began was being conceived in the shadows of Terra. Upon learning of Horus's treachery on Istvan III, the sires and siresses of the various secret Imperial assassin Clades were tasked by Malkador the Sigillite, the Emperor's regent and secret master of assassins, with the seemingly impossible task of slaying the arch-traitor Horus. Success would cripple the nascent rebellion and spare the Imperium untold suffering. However, every attempt to assassinate the Warmaster had thus far ended in failure. Despite the exceptional skills of the Clade's operatives, each strike had been broken, Horus seemingly oblivious to the shadows that danced around him. The Clade masters were forced to grimly recount their repeated failures in their clandestine meetings. Following the latest unsuccessful attempt by Clade Venenum, a new, radical strategy was proposed with the counsel of a special guest, Constantin Valdor, the Captain General of the Legio Custodes. Valdor emphasized that the individual efforts, however skilled, were simply not enough. No single assassin could hope to overcome a Primarch, but a collective, an elite strike team hand-picked from across the Clades might stand a chance. This unprecedented initiative led to the creation of the first Imperial Execution Force. 6 assassins, 1 from each Clade, were gathered and given the singular objective: eliminate Horus Lupercal by any means necessary. This marked a departure from past practices, as the Emperor had never sanctioned assassination as official Imperial policy, and even joint missions typically involved operatives from the same Clade. But these were desperate times. Unbeknownst to the execution force, the Dark Apostle Erebus was pursuing his own audacious plan. He believed that if assassination could be used against Horus, it could also be used by the traitors against the Emperor. To this end, he had taken a unique prisoner, a former Imperial assassin codenamed Spear. Born an untouchable, Spear had been captured by the Silent Sisterhood and experimented upon by Clade Colexus in an attempt to create an even more potent anti-psyker. Deemed too unstable, he was being transported for disposal when his vessel was intercepted by Erebus. Sensing Spear's potential, Erebus subjected him to a vile, chaotic ritual, bonding a minor demon to the former assassin. This transformation created the Black Pariah, a terrifying counter-psyker capable of redirecting psychic attacks after obtaining a sample of the target's blood. Erebus's ultimate goal for this creature was the assassination of the Emperor himself. The Execution Force, meanwhile, tracked Horus to the world of Dagonet. This world, liberated by Horus in the early days of the Great Crusade, now saw its turncoat nobility pledge allegiance to the Warmaster. The Clades believed Horus would arrive on Dagenet, aboard the vengeful spirit to solidify his control over the Thebaean sector. They planned to embed themselves on the planet and strike when he arrived, hoping to decapitate the rebellion before it could advance further. The Execution Force infiltrated Dagonet successfully, only to find the planet already largely under Horus's sway, the populace divided between loyalist resistance and pro-traitor forces. While gathering intelligence, two members of the Execution Force, the Venenum assassin Jenica Solum and the Colexus assassin Iota, became entangled in the plight of the local loyalists and the forbidden teachings of the Lectitio Divinitatis. This led to a fateful confrontation with the Black Pariah, Spear. In the ensuing battle, Solam was mortally wounded, and Iota, despite seriously injuring Spear with her animus speculum, was ultimately killed when Spear used her own blood to turn her anti-psyker abilities against her. The dying Solam tasked her brother, the Vindicare assassin Aristide Kell, and the Execution Force's leader, with killing Spear. Reviewing Iota's memories, the remaining assassins understood the immense threat the Black Pariah posed. Their mission became twofold: assassinate Horus and eliminate this deadly counter-assassin. When the vengeful spirit finally arrived in orbit above Dagonet, Kell positioned himself for the shot. As a figure adorned in the mantle of the Warmaster, teleported down to Liberation Plaza, Kell fired his Exitus rifle, the shot striking the figure in the throat, killing him instantly. But it was a cruel deception. Horus had sent a surrogate, Captain Luke Sedire, of the Sons of Horus's 13th Company. Amidst the ensuing chaos and the brutal slaughter of the Dagoneti populace by the enraged Sons of Horus, Kell managed to track down and, with the sacrifice of another remaining assassin, finally kill the Black Pariah. Kell, the lone survivor of the Execution Force, made one final, suicidal attack on the vengeful spirit, attempting to shoot Horus on the command bridge before his own ship was destroyed. The assassination attempt had failed. In the aftermath, a furious Horus confronted Erebus, chastising him for his unauthorized attempt on the Emperor's life, reiterating that he alone would strike the killing blow against the master of mankind. Part 4. Striking a blow for Horus, Calth, and Signis Prime. Even before the drop site massacre, Horus had set in motion further devastating strikes against the Loyalist legions. He exploited the bitter hatred Lorgar and the Word-Bearers harbored for Robot Guilliman and the Ultramarines, stemming from the destruction of Monarchia decades earlier. Horus fed Guilliman false intelligence regarding an Orc threat in the Viridian system, and ordered the Ultramarines and Word-Bearers to muster at Calth in Ultramar for a joint campaign. This was a carefully laid trap. As the Ultramarines gathered, unsuspecting, the Word-Bearers launched a surprise attack of immense ferocity, revealing their allegiance to the ruinous powers. But the betrayal at Calth went further. The Word-Bearers turned Calth's orbital defenses against its own sun, destabilizing it and rendering the surface a blasted wasteland. Simultaneously, they unleashed a massive warp storm, the Ruin Storm, which engulfed Ultramar, cutting it off from the rest of the galaxy and preventing the Ultramarines from reinforcing Terra. Though the Ultramarines ultimately survived this brutal attack, they were severely crippled, their ability to intervene in the wider war drastically diminished. Erebus also completed a dark ritual on Calth, solidifying the Ruinstorm's devastating grip on the eastern fringe. Meanwhile, Horus enacted another cruel manipulation against his seemingly favored brother, Sanguinius of the Blood Angels. Knowing of the Blood Angels' hidden genetic flaw, the Red Thirst, Horus used this knowledge as bait. He ordered Sanguinius to gather his entire legion and proceed to the Signis Cluster, a triple-star system near the eastern fringe, promising a cure for their affliction. Unbeknownst to Sanguinius, the Signis Cluster had fallen to the forces of chaos, becoming a collection of hellish demon worlds ruled by the greater demon of Slaanesh, Kiris the Perverse. As the Blood Angels entered the system, their fleet was ambushed by the malevolent energies of the warp. Navigators and astropaths were slain, leaving the Legion vulnerable and disoriented. Kiris taunted Sanguinius, revealing the true nature of the cluster and daring the angel to reclaim it. The Blood Angels, for the first time, faced the raw, corrupting power of chaos. Following the drop site massacre, Horus had orchestrated a series of devastating blows against the Imperium. He secured vital resources, neutralized potential threats, and crippled two of the Emperor's most loyal legions through cunning manipulation and brutal betrayal. The galaxy was rapidly descending into open war, and Horus's shadow loomed large. In our next episode, we will examine the wider galaxy's reaction to these cataclysmic events and the first true clashes of the Horus heresy beyond Istvan. Join us as the flames of civil war spread across the stars. Thank you for tuning in, Lore Lords. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the Warmaster's strategies, please hit that like button and subscribe for more Warhammer 40,000 lore. Let us know in the comments what you think of Horus's ruthlessness. Until next time, may the Emperor protect you, or not.